Everybody, it's Dr. Williamson. I've got my friend Chris here. He's a recent 100% P&T recipient, very well deserved and earned. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us the background story and how we got to this point?
Definitely. My name's Christopher Wall. Was in the Marine Corps from 97 to 2001. I came into woobie at about 30%. A lot of struggles trying to increase that. I've felt I had a lot of issues that weren't being addressed. And just jumping online, trying to get more, information on how to proceed forward, basically looking for help. Didn't feel I was getting it from my local team at the VA, and so I came across a couple of reviews from woobie, and so I just started asking more questions, and finally I picked up the phone the next day and I put in the call, and here I am today.
So it paid off quite well, I see a lot of people that have, gone through the system once, twice, three times and kind of stuck in that 20 to 50% range. And, I say this a lot to people, but I think the VA has their own little strategy with handing out some change here and there and, hoping that people won't come back through the system. And I think that's what at woobie we specialize in, moving the needle. Right? Because
Absolutely.
a lot of people will get a couple musculoskeletal things, maybe tinnitus rated and service connected. But those typically, and again, I'm an orthopedic guy, so it frustrates me, but those most of the time are not the things that are going to get you to that 80, 90, and then 100% PNT. They're important, they're real issues, but unfortunately with the VA, strategy has to be employed. So, I'm glad you came on board. When you did, what was your experience and how did we build a strategy with you, and what was that strategy for you personally?
So, at first, I think with anybody, it was a little overwhelming, and the reason why I say that because I do deal with a lot of mental health, stuff with anxiety and depression. So, when you're talking to somebody and they're kind of throwing all these things out you, if you have to do this, and that, that's where it started to get overwhelming. It's kind of like, ugh, I don't know if this is in my realm just because of I know what I'm dealing with, and I'm not sure I can do put in 100% of this. But then as I kept asking more questions, and the one other piece to this puzzle was my support system, which was my family. And a big piece of this was my wife. Um, Talking to her and having the understanding that I can't do this alone. Um, we had the deal that she was going to help and push me through this.
Amen. It takes a village, my friend. And I hear it in your voice, and, I'm proud of you and for doing what you knew was right, even though it was hard. And having your wife there, good on her and good on you to have someone like that in your corner.
Yeah, and I hope nobody looks down on themselves. You have to have the support system, and woobie is that other support system. It's woobie can't be there every single minute of the day, but who can be there is your family to help you fill the gap. And with two support systems, you'll be able to get through this.
Right. And, I like to always broadcast some of our ethos at woobie is telling people the truth. And I think what you just said there manifests it perfectly is 9 out of 10 other companies, I suppose, I would, imagine that they're going to tell you what you want to hear, make it easy on you on the front end. And that's great and all, but there's money involved and it's time. And, we take the approach of tough love and telling you the truth, right? And
Exactly.
inconvenient truth many times that we don't set it up that way, but the VA system is tough. Going after high yield issues is not something that just sounds good or we want it to be, marketable. It's true. There's behavioral health, number one. When you come on board with us, we do our onboarding, we ask the right questions. We know what's there more or less in our community because we are that community. So it's building trust and a plan that makes sense. And it does take a village, doing this stuff by yourself. When I went through my VA claim, I was by myself. And even as a physician, it just leaves an uneasy feeling because, you're kind of at the mercy of a lot of entities that you don't even see. I think bringing understanding to how the process works in a partnership, that's also where we're very different, because we do ask you to do things, right? It's not a
Right.
passive system.
Mhm.
Being passive is what 98% of people do, and look at the results. Taking an active role in your claims, understanding that system, and then with help, if you need it, which most people need help with it, is then, well, yeah, I understand the system now, but what am I going to do about it? Right. And going
Absolutely.
Gestalt experiences are great things, but one of the best things is that we do as well is we look at the numbers, we look at predictive analytics. We're not completely AI where it's robotic, but we're using all the tools to say, well, statistically, this is the route with what you have and what you say you have, and here's the gaps, and here's how we execute that plan. So, you know, again, most of us are very similar in military veteran community, right? It's true. We kind of don't trust, but like we need objective goals, and that's something I think we do quite well. Do you want to talk about outside of mental health? We also had another few moves that we made with some high yield issues. You want to talk about kind of how we built that out?
So yeah, a couple of high yield claims. One, I'm gonna start with sleep apnea first. That was something I didn't really put a whole lot of emphasis on. I knew I had some issues, but not to the extent until I took the test. And again, this was brought up by you guys. You guys looked at my injuries that I sustained, basically looking at my entire record, and said, have you ever had any of these symptoms? And a lot of it had to do with my sleep and my exhaustion. And I was like, well, yeah, we recommend doing a sleep study. Okay, but why? I'm always the asking the questions. You guys had the answers, and so I did. I got with the VA, and they set it up, and sure enough, I was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea. But the one thing that I didn't realize is my oxygen levels was low, and the so after submitting the claim on that one, I was definitely shocked that I received 100% P&T on that one. And it was due to the low oxygen levels that I was sustaining. But it made complete sense because the headaches, the everything I was sustaining, afterwards, like I said, made complete sense. But I would have never even put those two and two together if it wasn't for you guys, scrutinizing my service records and pointing these things out to say, this is what we need to also look at as well. Let's get these tests signed, going and see where we're at with this. So that was
You nailed it, because again, to interject here is that when we take people on board, we do not employ a hammer and a nail philosophy. Like I believe, a huge believer in what we do in our company and what we execute objectively is a holistic approach, right? It is looking at the forest and not just the tree. I have some people that come into me and they're fixated on an issue. Maybe it's a high yield issue, maybe it's not. And even if it is a high yield issue, I always, early on when I talk to people, I say, I hear you, and I hear you, but what else? And that's why we do a very thoughtful and inclusive review of systems that I've crafted and we employ, because we want to know symptomatically where potentially there's issues that you're not even thinking about. And we go full throttle, just like in your case with sleep apnea. The VA is so variable, it's hard to predict. It's impossible to predict which claim is going to get rated what and why, and service connected or not. They're all over the place. So I think it's a good strategy to take the things that are, they're common, and be aggressive with them with truth. And that's what we did with you. Is we didn't come out of thin air. We said, you got to do this. Let's look down this pathway. Is there something there? If so, let's go this route. And I think it's just using logic and evidence to build things.
definitely, yeah. And so yeah, I ended up with 100% P&T on that one. I also filed for GERD. Now this is the one that kind of shocked me because I went in for the test. It was kind of like a duel. I had a colonoscopy set up, and they were just like, "Hey, why could we kind of piggyback?" And I'm like, "Sure enough." So I was diagnosed with a severe GERD. They actually they cut out 2 polyps, and they also found that I had an ulcer. So I ended up getting the 0% rating. And of course they said, hey, until you have to start getting like weekly, therapy and stuff, then, the increase won't happen. So again, already being rated at 100%, I wasn't, worried about it, for the simple case, but that kind of threw me off, as well. The other one, was migraines. Now, I'll be honest with you, I will say this is my fault, but I had no idea that I had already filed for this. And when I say this, I believe you brought this up, in one of your podcast videos about, looking at, the files that claims have already been denied, and then that's going to tell you exactly what you need to file going forward. So when I was trying to find those, they weren't listed in my files. I actually had to contact one of the reps at the VA, and they were able to see it on theirs, and it said, well, you put in a claim for TBI, but then on the backside they listed all these other claims that were denied based under the TBI. So I was like, well, that threw me off. So it's not saying it was denied. They just said, hey, you should have did this as a secondary, blah, blah, blah. But then again, I was already like, well, I'm already at 100% P&T. It was like, do I go through the trouble and so on and so forth? So the mental health in all four of those claims, that was deferred. And so it was a week and a half ago, I had my CMP exam with Optum, and I have to say that went very well. The psychiatrist was, asked a lot of questions, asked a lot of the right questions. I didn't feel like she was, kind of judging me and, looking at me like, well, you don't look like this, or you're saying this, but, this is not matching up. And so about 30 minutes later, that was done and over with. And within about a day or two, I ended up getting, the letter stating that I was also rated at 70% for mental health.
Awesome. And that's something like I give credit where credit is due with the VA. They seem to be very fair on average. There are some, wild outlier examples where behavioral health is, a point of emphasis for the VA on giving appropriate ratings based on their own formulas. So, we try to, there's certain scenarios where we want to go to those CMP exams, like in your case, and other ones where we can go for increases without actually having to go through those exams again through independent medical opinions. You mentioned this a second ago too. I want to pay point to this. Getting 100% P&T is the goal, right? For 99% of people. Some people don't have the issues to get 100%. So if that's, if something develops over time, sure, we'll go address it. Most people have the things if you're smart about it and build the evidence the right way, and support it the right way. But once, this is my advice to you and anyone else in a situation, and I'll give you an example of why in a second. Once you get 100% P&T, it's my opinion that you should never make another claim ever again. Because I have seen, and recently, one person of ours, I hear this story, and if you go down Reddit threads and, anecdotes here and there, buddies and stuff, maybe you hear more, but I know one for sure that had 100%, went to go get seen for something else, trying to, get a little back pay or something like that, and they dropped it. And they dropped something, they played a game, yes. And now you're not permanent total anymore. So it opens up a whole bag of worms.
Exactly.
And maybe I just, I've been down the rabbit hole too many times, seen the belly of the beast too many times, tinfoil hat, Murphy's Law abiding citizen here, but like the goal is 100% P&T. Now, if you've already made the claim and they want to do stuff, sure, comply with what they want, that kind of stuff. But I would say, you have to understand what we're up against when you're doing VA claims, and also the biases.
Right.
They're biased because there's money involved. There may be good people and they try to play by the rules, but I'm here to give, make testament to the fact that 97 times out of 100, when they get a chance to undercut ratings, they will. And I don't know their names because they don't put their names on these documents, those kind of things. But, our goal, and I think that's a big part of zooming out a little bit, we talked about strategy, anything, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's an something in life, anything, you have to have a clear goal. You got to say what the goal is, and then create a plan that is in line to get to that goal. And specifics matter. So at woobie, like what I advise everybody to do, and our goal is get to 100% PNT. So if what we're doing, and the most expeditious, reasonable way to get there as fast as possible, but reasonably as possible, that is the goal. So everything we do is aimed at that goal. So in your case, yeah, you got kind of an outlier situation with sleep apnea. Hell yeah, right? Because that's the truth. More people should probably get that rating, but they don't. So it's really, it's thinking ahead and being wise and understanding what the system is that you're up against. The art of war, more or less. You have to understand the enemy to know possibilities, right? Never underestimate a system or an enemy, right? The VA is not our enemy, but truthfully, we're having to argue with them, kind of reverse the gaslighting, because they're saying it's not service connected, and when stuff really is. So
Definitely.
So I'm happy for you. Again, I would say, rest easy with that. Now, for the rest of your life, you have the educational benefits, VA for your family, tax breaks, the compensation, obviously tax free, so it's like a pension. I tell people this a lot in these talks, but I mean it sincerely. And I don't, you do what you want to do, but my advice to you and charge to you is take this opportunity as an opportunity to be a better human being, to build a business, to further your education, be a better spouse, be a better man, be a better father, be a better you, invest in your hobbies, anything. So, this is an opportunity to help other people as well in your life, in your circles, people are struggling. And it's not just about sending them the woobie. This is how this works. I think the great side effect of this job and what I do is that it actually helps our community. So you're part of that. So share. This stuff is not privileged information, right? Help people. If they need our help, great. If they don't, help them anyway. You do it, right? And I think that by doing that, we save a lot of bad things from happening to our people and struggle and misery. So what do you intend to do now that you've gotten 100%? What's your plans?
So, I mean, really, it's just soaking it all in. It's been a long journey, but you kind of pointed it out. It's paying it forward to everyone that helped me get here. I could have took I don't want to say it was the easy route, but I could have took my 100% and walked away. But I didn't. So my family, obviously, I owe it to them. But I've stuck around on woobie and the app, and I still communicate with others that are have questions or stuff like that, kind of spreading the positivity and the good things that I've went through, and hopefully it kind of leans them forward to say, hey, I'm hearing a lot of good things. I'm going to take that leap, and I'm going to invest in them to help me get where I should be. And so that's what I'm going to do. Again, it's just still overwhelming, because there is a lot of things, because now like I pointed out in the beginning, you said a lot of great things, benefits this, tax break this. All that says to me is I still have to deal with a lot of these people, which is, again, that's the nature of it, but I still got to deal with these people. Will it get done? Yes, eventually. But I'm just glad that I can kind of breathe, and just like you stated, just kind of work on myself and use this opportunity to move forward in a better way. And so
Amen.
whatever that means is what I'm going to do. So.
Right. And the optimism, like that's a big part of it. If you do need help, sincerely, with like champva or any of these things, local stuff, like I mean it when I say it. We're talking about the family and the community that we have at woobie. Like you're a member for life, right? Like, we're here to help you. Our main ethos outside of building good strategies is solutions. So like if you have a problem or a question, we're going to try to find a solution for it, right? Like, yeah, of course, most people, the biggest issue is getting their VA disability benefits right and squared away.
Right.
But we have a lot of other issues too. If there's legal stuff, if there's systems problems, as we grow, hopefully we can start, and we are planning on investing in a more broad scope of solutions for our community, because that's really, like you said, you're never done with these people.
Right.
You're not. Like, and the great thing about the way we structured it is that we're not going to nickel and dime people for services, right? It's a membership. You paid in, you paid your dues. Obviously within no time, basically, by the time you get your first check, it's already more than paid for itself. But we hold up our end of the bargain too, because that's the right thing to do. And that's what we're set up to do now, but into the future. So, man, when I say this a lot too, but this is the highlight of my week, and why I like doing these talks is because, I'm guilty of being very negative and pessimistic and grinding and battle hardened and like against the VA. And that's all I do, right? I fight, plan, like strategic, above board work. But like I get to exhale through you guys that do well. And like it keeps me going, because you can only be negative and fight for so long. You have to recharge with seeing and celebrating the good things, because there are things to celebrate and be proud of what we do as a team, as a company, but also the individual, one person at a time mentality. Because, our difference is not only that we're smart and we're using, certain analytics to do things, but we treat people well. We're honest with people, and we do one at a time mentality. We treat everybody as we want to be treated, golden rule style. And I'm a firm believer that if you do that and shoot people straight and are honest and hard working for them, the rest of it always works out and things
Absolutely.
are good to go.
Absolutely.
So Chris, thank you again for taking the time and share your story. I think it's important. God bless you. And if you need any help, you know where to find me and our team, and we'd be happy to do anything you need for you going down the line.
No, thank you. And appreciate the whole entire woobie team. Cause like, I said, if it wasn't for you guys, helping in this, I call it an adventure. I wouldn't be sitting here right now. We wouldn't be chatting.
Well, I'm glad it happened, and go forth and prosper, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.